Welcome back to my channel, VintageBakes 101. Our story begins in World War II, France in 1917. 22 Salvation Army officers left the United States for France, and 4 of them were women. Their mission was to make the boys forget about the unspeakable horrors of the battlefield in a good, wholesome way. And when morale needed boosting the most, the excess rations were collected to make a dough: flour, sugar, eggs, baking powder, canned milk. Bits were pinched off and hand-rolled into simple crullers, then cooked in a soldier's helmet filled with hot lard. The operation grew until the same 2 women were frying up 2,500 donuts a day, which is possible when you stop frying things in helmets and ask the army to give you an actual pan to cook in. The soldiers were lucky enough to come home and begin requesting hot donuts from their wives in neighborhood bakeries. Soon they became a permanent part of the American culinary landscape. Their enthusiasm for this simple fried pastry was so tremendous, it began the nickname over a century later and means a soldier who fought in the Great War. They called them doughboys. So in this video, we're going to be making donut lassies, fried donuts from World War I. You're going to need oil or lard for frying. I did lard. And just so you know, lard does smell quite funny when it starts cooking. My family couldn't handle it, and they said that they would not eat the donuts if I cooked them in lard, so I had to switch to shortening. So now we're going to add 4 cups of flour. You're going to make sure that those are all leveled off and everything. You don't want to over flour a recipe, it'll make them super dry. And then you're going to want to put 1 tablespoon plus 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And then after that, you're going to mix that all together, and you're also going to add 2 cups of sugar. As you're stirring, you're going to want to make sure that you get all the lumps out as best as you can, and you're going to make a well in the center of your dry ingredients. And I actually made my well too small, so I would definitely think about making a bigger well. And you're going to need 1 can of evaporated milk, which definitely goes with the time period of World War I. The Great Depression was almost there, and so even before that, rations in the army were very limited, and the Salvation Army could only bring so much over from the United States to France. You're going to add 2 eggs into the well that you put the evaporated milk in, and you're going to want to start to stir that after you add 3/4 teaspoon of salt. Like I said, it was pretty hard on even the Salvation Army to collect donations to get everything over to France. They actually put them on the front lines of the war to make these donuts and to, just talk to the soldiers while they're going through this horrible war. A lot of soldiers were suffering from combat fatigue, and this was definitely something that they could look forward to. And even though they didn't have, anything to go on top of them, just having something that made them feel comfort, and, the 4 ladies being there made it feel a little more at home rather than being so far away from your family and your friends and your kids. You're going to want to combine all of those dry ingredients and wet ingredients and start making a dough. Once it gets to the point that you can't mix it by a spoon, you're going to want to start getting ready to knead the dough. You're going to want to turn the mixture out onto a floured surface, and you're going to put like a cup of flour down to start kneading the dough. You're going to knead it until it is smooth, and it says you can use a dough scraper or metal spatula to scrape up the bits that stick, but I didn't really have dough that actually stuck to the surface, so that was nice. You're going to want to get a wire rack over a cookie sheet and put some paper towels over it. You're going to want to start forming your donuts. So you're going to do a large snake, and you're going to make them into a circle. They should look like donuts. So you're going to get your oil up to 270 before you start frying these. You're going to want to be very careful because the oil is very, very hot. You can use chopsticks like I did to flip the donuts. I waited about 30 seconds in between flipping them. That's what the recipe said. But the problem is that I found out that some of my donuts were actually raw in the middle, and I think it was because of the inconsistencies I had with size. They said to make them relatively small. As I got more comfortable with the shape, I accidentally made them a little bit bigger than I probably should have. So I would suggest making sure that you definitely keep your oil at the correct temperature, which is 370, and you're going to want to flip these every 30 seconds as long as they're smaller. I put powdered sugar on mine to serve, but I took a bite out of a regular one because that's what they would have served on the front lines. And let me tell you, these are the best homemade donuts I've ever had. I wouldn't change anything about the recipe. Everything was just enough and made me feel like I was eating a very authentic donut. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and my next video will actually be a Jewish apple cake that came over after the World War II. Thank you so much, and I hope you guys have a great day and have fun in the kitchen.